liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Wow, what a place. What a view, isn't it, John? It's absolutely unreal.
Have you heard about the famous Apollo mission, or Project Apollo? It's the successful moon landing by the US back in 1969 that landed Neil Armstrong on the moon. This mission made headlines all over the globe, and the astronauts and engineers were awarded for their bravery and engineering skills. What if we told you there's recent evidence that the moon landing was all a big hoax? The moon landing being fake has been a topic for so many years, and was dying until the famous comedian Joe Rogan talked about it in his podcast, and boom, it made people furious, like we completely forgot about how the government lied to us. He went on and highlighted some points proving how the moon landing was most likely fake. When the astronauts went onto the moon, they must have thought, why not bring back some epic souvenirs? So, they came back with around 800 pounds of moon rocks and soil samples from the lunar surface of the moon. When they got back to Earth, the scientists were all surprised how did they manage to collect so many samples. So, they got their hands on these samples and got to work, started researching and collaborating with other well-known scientists from all over the world. The scientists themselves admit that these samples are nothing like what we can find on Earth. They're unique, with different minerals in these little glass beads called regolith that come from tiny meteoroid impacts. You can't find anything like that on Earth. They have their unique composition, and from the isotopic analysis of the moon rocks, scientists confirmed they're not from around here. Lunar laser ranging is a scientific technique used to precisely measure the distance between the Earth and the Moon. How it works is that laser beams from Earth are directed towards retroreflectors left on the Moon's surface to measure the distance. During the Apollo 11, 14 and 15 missions, astronauts placed retroreflectors on the Moon's surface. These retroreflectors are made up of a series of prisms that have the unique property of reflecting light or laser beams directly back towards their source, regardless of the angle of incidence. This property makes them highly effective for laser ranging experiments. Then, a very powerful laser from Earth is pointed to the Moon, and when these lasers finally reach the retroreflectors, they are reflected towards Earth. Clocks with the highest accuracy are then used to measure how long it takes for the beams to go from Earth to the Moon and back. This part has to be accurate to minimise any kind of error. These clocks are set to record the time down to the nanosecond. Since the speed of light is constant, scientists can measure the exact distance from the time recorded to know the distance from the Earth to the Moon. Some people saw the footage of the astronauts on the Moon and got a little sceptical. They had so many questions about different things in those videos. One of the questions that some people had was about the movement speed of the astronauts on the Moon's surface. They said that in some of these videos, the astronauts seemed to be moving at a snail's speed like they were strolling through a Sunday picnic. According to them, this slow motion stroll doesn't match what they'd expect on the Moon's low gravity. They say if this video was real, then the astronauts would be moving around a lot faster since there's no resistance to oppose them, and less gravity would mean they could jump higher and further. They explain the footage to be like somebody hitting the slow-mo button on the moon landing, and things don't seem to add up. Some people believe that the footage NASA released of astronauts moving in outer space is all part of one big green screen. Before a mission to the moon, every astronaut has to go through intense training, and some training exercises involved recreating the moon's lunar conditions on Earth as closely as possible. It's most likely they took videos from their training exercise here on Earth, changed the background, and released them to the press. They say NASA only did that so they could show off to the world and prove they were ahead of the game in the space race against the Soviet Union. NASA decided to give those skeptics more proof and release the images to the public. But what they didn't know was that these images would come back to bite them. After bashing NASA and calling them out for their videos and the physics being off, the skeptics turned towards the photographs. Some people talk about the shadows in the photos. That's how they don't match up, which supposedly means they have multiple light sources, like studio lights. Some defend NASA, saying that that's only because the moon's got uneven terrain, and the lack of atmosphere makes the shadows sharp and distinct. No big deal. Another thing about the photos is that you can't see any stars on the moon. How's that possible? Since the moon is dark, and if you take any pictures there, you'd expect stars to show up in the background, right? Well, the astronaut did take some photographs with stars in them, but it's super faint. Some say the camera and lighting used on the moon weren't designed to take pictures of the stars, just the surface of the moon and the astronauts themselves. Now, there are a few pictures that do have stars in the background, but those were taken with a long exposure that let more light in so the stars showed up better. But the downside is that the foreground gets blurry. The people put out another argument saying that there are no footprints in the moon landing photos. Since the moon is dusty and all, any footprints would be crystal clear, and since we don't see them, they must be fake. But NASA claims that there are footprints in some of the moon photos. They're just really faint and not easy to spot. You see, the astronauts were wearing these special boots made of beta cloth. It's a tough yet lightweight material that protects their feet from the moon's heat and radiation. But it also means that the footprints they left were shallow, not super obvious, and since the moon's dust is so soft itself, it's super easy for those tiny particles to shift around and smooth out any footprints real quick. Some people pointed out that the shadows on the moon produced by the astronauts were kind of converging and looked edited, but NASA had a scientific explanation for this. Since the sun is far away from the moon, its rays are parallel to the moon, so when you take a picture from a low angle, the rays of the sun aren't parallel to the camera lens. This makes the shadows look like they're converging. Now, this has to be the most solid evidence of the moon landing to be fake. In some of the photos, people saw the American flag on the moon landing photos look like it's waving in the wind, which is a really good argument here because there's a complete vacuum in space, or in simple terms, there's just no air. So, why was the flag moving? Turns out there's a very simple explanation for this. NASA says that the American flag on the moon wasn't just stuck in the lunar dust, like you'd stick a flag in your backyard. Instead, it was attached to a metal rod that one of the astronauts was holding, and each time the astronaut moved, the flag would wave a bit. Just like how a flag here on Earth waves when you move it around, even if there's no wind. Another reason is that since moon dust is so fine, it can't stop the flag from moving. NASA further tells us that the material of the flag used was nylon, which is pretty lightweight and known to wave easily, and that's why it looks like it was waving more freely. What do you think about this conspiracy? Was the moon landing fake? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to leave us a thumbs up. And do not forget to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to be always updated with the most exciting content as soon as it's uploaded. Thanks for watching. See you again soon in another video.